Hey guys, today we're sewing a beautiful oversized polo shirt with a relaxed fit. You can find the pattern on my Patreon site, the link is in the video description down below. And if you don't want to miss the next sewing tutorials, feel free to subscribe to my channel and I'm very happy about every thumbs up. For today's sewing project I'm using my normal sewing machine, the Singer HD 6335M, but also my Yuki overlock, the MO50EN, because I want the polo shirt to be as close to the industry standard as possible. If you only have a normal sewing machine, no problem at all. I will try to explain everything within this framework and the parts with the overlock are just a nice extra.
But what do we actually need to sew the polo shirt? Approximately 1.5 meters of fabric, jersey or piqué. I would recommend a fabric with a certain elasticity. This is particularly important for the collar. You also need 2 to 3 buttons to press on, to hammer on or to sew on, a sewing machine with a buttonhole function, sewing needles, stretch and universal, a normal sewing foot, an edge sewing foot, a buttonhole sewing foot and a button sewing foot, a pair of scissors, a separating knife, a tape measure, chalk or a colored pencil, an iron, and a thread that matches the color of the fabric. Once we have all our stuff together, we need to prepare our pattern. To do this, we lay all the A4 pages in front of us in the correct order and cut everything perfectly along the edges. Then we need to glue all the small individual pieces together to make our final pattern pieces using sellotape. Now we can start with the cutting. I still had this beige jersey fabric in stock and decided to sew the polo with it. The back and the front are cut on the fold. This means that you fold your fabric once so wide that the pattern piece fits perfectly in width. Then place the inside of the pattern piece on the folded edge. This is also called the fold. Fix the whole thing, then draw the outline or you can cut directly along the edge of the pattern. On the front, you need to make the small incision cleanly, as the center is crucial for the button plackets. Of course, we also need a right and a left sleeve. It is a good idea to fold the fabric in such a way that you can simply lay the sleeve pattern piece on top and cut out the 2 matching pieces directly through the 2 layers. You will see 2 lines like this on the edge of the sleeve on the pattern. Mark the spot as there are the same lines on the pattern piece for the back. These lines are there so that you can align the sleeve when you insert it. Now cut out the collar, the button plackets, the breast pocket, the cuffs and a strip approximately 55 cm long and 5 cm wide. The strip will later be used to finish the neckline. In the next step, we iron all our cutout parts in an exemplary manner. This is to counteract the subtle shrinkage factor that will occur when the shirt is washed for the first time. You can also counteract the curling of the edges of jersey fabric. I would also recommend this. Mark the wrong side of all pieces. With the jersey fabric I am using, there's only a slight difference between the right and the left sides, but of course we only want to see the beautiful right side of all the pieces at the end. The first step is to prepare the collar. To do this, we fold the piece of fabric in the middle once, right sides facing, and fix the 2 sides with clips. Now pay close attention. We place our prepared collar under the normal presser foot in the same way. Stitch length 3, needle position in the middle. Now sew 2 to 3 stitches forward and the same number back. This is called back tacking. This prevents the seam from coming undone. Now sew to approximately 1.5 cm before the corner and now pay attention. Keep the needle in the fabric. Turn the piece of fabric so that the presser foot is at a 45-degree angle and now set the stitch length to 2. Make 2 stitches at this angle and then sew stitch length 3 again and sew the whole long edge and do the same on the other side. These 2 small stitches make the corner look much better. At the end, cut off some fabric at an angle on both corner edges so that it doesn't collect in the corner when you turn it. But be careful not to cut too close to the seam, otherwise there's a high risk of the seam coming undone. As the long passage was sewn along the folded, closed edge of the fabric, but the collar is now to be turned, we cut this entire edge open once lengthwise. This allows the whole thing to be turned and we prepare the edges with clips so that the edges can be ironed in the next step. Now we take our edge sewing foot, set the stitch length to 4 and make a nice top stitch, seam all the way around. Once this is finished, we can sew up the lower open side of the collar with a normal presser foot. Next, we prepare the breast pocket. We take our pattern piece as a guide and first fold in the side edges by approximately 1 cm. This is followed by the bottom edge and the 2 short slanted edges. Now we fold in the top edge by approximately 1 cm and with the second fold we want to conjure up this white strip. All folded edges are now ironed though roughly assembly and we sew the bottom edge of the white strip with the normal sewing foot using a straight stitch. This brings us to the most difficult part of a polo shirt, the whole collar and button placket thing. First, we take our 2 button placket pieces, lay them with the right side of the fabric facing down, and then fold an approximately 0.75 centimeters white strip inwards and iron it. Now place the 2 pieces on the fabric, right sides together, to the right and left of the incision in the front, so that the narrow ironed edges are facing upwards. Then take our measuring tape and mark a point 1.5 centimeters below the incision on both pieces. In the next step, we sew edge to edge with the presser foot and the needle in the middle up to the marked point on both sides. Now we cut our button plackets in half and make small notches in the corners. Next, we fold the button plackets on top of each other once. And now a very important and delicate part. We make an incision to the right and left of the center incision of the front, to the exact end of the seam where the markings are. Fold this small piece inwards and secure it with a pin. Now take the left button placket and also bring it from the outside to the inside. The right side is also turned inwards. This then lies on top of the left side. This is important to maintain, and the pieces should lie neatly on top of each other on the front and back. Now we take the small piece of fabric and the button plackets on top of it. Fix everything exactly on top of each other, check whether it looks neat on the outside, and then sew all these layers on the inside so that they are close to the edge. We then cut off the excess fabric and neaten the overlap with the overlock. If you don't have an overlock machine, you can check your sewing machine's instruction manual to see what kind of overlock stitches it has and use them to overlock all the overlock parts of this project. The button plackets should now lie neatly on top of each other, and we will now sew a narrow rectangle at the bottom edge in the front. This means we have completed just under 50% of the closure, but now we want to sew on the breast pocket first. To do this, we place it with a white top strip at about the same height as our small top stitched rectangle from before. Then we pin the pocket in place, and in the next step we sew a top stitch seam all the way around in a U shape using the edge sewing foot. That's it. As a small intermediate step, I now overlock the bottom hem edges of the front and back pieces. This will be important later. If you don't have an overlock, I will show you another way to get clean hems later. We now lay our front and back pieces right sides together and secure the shoulder seams with clips. And now watch out. I'm working with a very stretchy jersey fabric here. That's why I need both a stretch sewing needle and the stretch stitch function on my sewing machine. I can't recommend sewing stretch fabric without these 2 features. If your sewing machine does not have a stretch stitch function, I can only advise you to use a zigzag stitch for all passages where a stretch stitch is necessary. Because if you sew these sections with a normal straight stitch, the seams will tear after a short time. In any case, we sew the shoulder sections together, I overlock the whole thing, and then we turn the seam allowance inside out towards the back and press the 2 shoulder seams from the top. Now we can continue with the closure and collar. First, we cut our back piece in half and mark the center with a pin. Then we also halve our 2 button plackets to help us, where we simply place our notch on top of each other, and this small piece, half of it, is our marking, which we also mark with a pin. Now we also cut the collar we prepared at the beginning in half and mark the middle. Now we can attach the collar to the neckline with clips, right sides facing. The 2 end corners of the collar are placed at the 2 markings on the button plackets. Don't be surprised, the length of the collar edge is shorter than the fabric of the neckline. This is necessary for the correct fit of the collar later. There will be some stretching during sewing. In any case, our 5 cm wide edging tape is also used at this point. We iron this completely once and then fold it lengthwise left to left. Both our outer sides now show the beautiful right side of the fabric. Fold the edging tape in half, mark the center and fix it over the attached collar with the open side facing up. I would recommend that you fix everything perfectly with clips or pins at this point, which means that any sections where there is a little too much fabric from the neckline must be stretched so that the collar, edging tape and neckline fabric fit together. Once you have done this, cut off the excess part of the edging tape. Now set your stretch stitch on the sewing machine, needle position in the middle, and sew edge to edge with the presser foot from the corner of one button placket to the corner of the other button placket on all the many layers of fabric. Then we cut off some of the excess seam allowances, because now we turn both corners of the button placket inside out and press the edge tape down. We top stitch this once along the entire length with a close edge. Now let's take a look at our button plackets. If they lie nicely on top of each other, we can pin everything on the top side and top stitch close to the edge on both sides. It should look like this. In any case, we can now insert the sleeves. Pay attention to the markings from the beginning. Fasten everything with clips, right sides together, and then sew together with a stretch stitch. I finished the whole thing again with the overlock. Next we lay our shirt, including the sewn on sleeves, right sides together and secure both outer edges with clips, as these will also be sewn together with a stretch stitch in the next step and then overlocked. In the next step, I fold the hem of the bottom shirt opening inwards by approximately 2 cm. I then press these whole edges once all the way around. I can finish the hem with a stretch stitch. I finished these parts with the overlock beforehand, as this prevents the fabric from fraying after washing or the hem from turning outwards after washing, for example. If you don't have an overlock, you can simply fold in 1 cm and then another 1.5 cm and then simply sew the strip down. This also looks great and serves the same purpose. For the sleeve hems, we take our 2 cuff strips. Everything that follows now applies to both strips. Cut the strip in half and sew the short diagonal sections to the right and left. Then place these 2 sides on top of each other and sew these short sections closed. Place the cuff strip with the seam on the seam of the sleeve hem and then fold the cuff and sleeve in half to find the center point of both. This is then the other fusing point. Use the stretch stitch to sew the cuff in place all the way around. I finished the whole thing with the overlock. To make the whole thing super clean, we also do a top stitch all the way around the outside. In the final steps, we take 2 buttons and mark our desired button positions on the lower left button placket. Using a buttonhole presser foot, we can now sew the 2 buttons in place. Alternatively, you can of course do the whole thing by hand. We will make 2 buttonholes on the top right strip. You can feel the buttons already sewn on under the fabric to find the right 2 endpoints. Now make a few test buttonholes to make sure that your settings harmonize with the fabric, and then the final buttonholes can be made. These are cut with a cutting knife. I can give you a tip. First, cut from one side to the middle and then from the other side to the middle. This way you don't run the risk of ruining everything in the last few meters. And here is the finished polo shirt. Very casual. The fit is just so relaxed and a little oversized. Beige is simply my favorite color for clothes, and I always like the boxy look. The button fastening and collar are really clean as well, and with such a comfortable jersey fabric, it's perfect for wearing in good weather.
If you liked the video, then I'm definitely happy about every thumbs up. Feel free to send me your finished sewing projects via Insta. It's always really cool to see what you've guys been cooking up. Feel free to let me know in the comments how you liked the video, and if you have any more suggestions or questions, please let me know. See you at the next video. Until then, have fun sewing.